Music is something which unites people and elevates people. When you write a script, you really need to convince people that they're going to be happier together. How important the art is and how important it is to excel and achieve something, I probably unconsciously picked up from my mother. I've tried to move my films from plot-driven to more character-driven.
Hi Rajiv, welcome to Film Companion. When Kandu Content released, you said that it was kind of autobiographical. You said that it was the story of you and your brother who lost your father fairly early, but you kind of transposed it to the story of two sisters, that same premise. Is there something autobiographical in Sarvam Thaala Mayam, given the fact that you are so into Carnatic music and one has seen you around concerts and all so many times?
I guess the love that one has for an art and the desire to excel in it, that as a premise in a film is not possible if you haven't heard or lived with it. And I have, my earliest memories of, when we were in, my father was a naval officer, and when we lived in, Vizag or whatever it is, you would play, and come back from school, go and play your game of shuttle, come back, have a bath, and then sit to study at, you have to be on the desk, doing your homework at 7. And that's when the tambura will start and my mother will start singing. And she would sing till 8. And at 8:30 you would come for dinner. And then 9 o'clock would be the news while you had the dinner. So in this ritual, my mother always practiced in the evening while we studied. And it's only natural that over dining, at table, what is the new song you sang? What was it? And my mother said, this song is like that film song. And that's how I sort of, because at that time, when we were in Vizag or Delhi or something, you don't have any exposure to Carnatic music. You can't hear it. I mean, like, South Zone hookup on All India Radio will come once. This was before television. So the only way you could hear it is actually your mother singing it. And maybe her own desires to sing, and then she coming here, losing my father, and then making it as a devotional musician, a film musician, but always feeling that maybe she was always felt that she had it in her to make it, but maybe she came in too late at 38 or 40. So I think that aspect of how important the art is and how important it is to excel and achieve something is something that I probably unconsciously picked up from my mother, And I think the liberating quality of the art and the kind of thing that music brings to people is something I have seen. And I remember there used to be some relations who would suddenly troop in. My mother had lost her husband when she was 37. So it was a kind of a shock in those days. My father was only 41. And, long lost relatives will pop up 1 year after the death, and they would sit and they would cry. And they expect my mother to cry with her. I mean, she has cried and there are no more tears. But so once people come into your house and they cry before you cry, I mean, you're busted. So that's enough reason for some people to slip into depression. These were days before one heard of anxiety and depression and all that. So my mother would then just go into the room and she would switch on her, Shruti box or something, and she would sing for an hour and a half and come back, relatively refreshed to take the rest of the day on.
So that would kind of calm
She
her.
said that, when you sing, you have to be on pitch, you have to be on beat. So you have to be on the moment. Agony and grief. Grief is especially when you can relate the past with the future. And you can't do that when you sing. You are there, right there at that moment. And one day, I remember my mother, when I was just starting off and we had started our own production company making commercials, and she just happened to come and see it, and she saw this huge jamboree of so many people, and she said, oh, this is like so much, so many people have to come together to shoot. And she said, I'm very lucky. I don't have all this. So I said, what do you mean? She said, I just need my breath and I can sing. I don't need anything else. So, this ability of a musician to be completely bereft of anything but practice your art and feel happy. And that ennobling quality of art, which can help people overcome their innermost struggles is to me a huge idea to use in a very divisive world where people see everything in a different way, but I see music as something which unites people and elevates people and just gives a young person a kind of purpose of what his life is all about, and Indian films traditionally is about a guy finding his love interest or slaying the villain. But there's something else that we all make up our mind between 18 to 25. That's what are we going to do? What's the work we're going to do? What is that job that is going to be all encompassing? What can really, drive you for the rest of your life? You're looking for that one passion, and that's something very rarely, explored in Indian cinema. And therefore, you see things as victory. Even sports films are seen as only victory. But I see it as how you kind of learn an art. How do you discover a guru? How do you as a person change? What happens to your philosophy of life? How do you grow? This hero's journey in art is what I was trying to explore. I guess it's because of so much of music that I heard in my childhood that I'm musically inclined and seen the power of music to heal.
This is the story of a Dalit youngster who wants to make a mark in the field of Carnatic, the world of Carnatic music by becoming a Mridangam player, and he's got the talent and all that. Now, this is the watershed moment for Dalit narratives in Tamil cinema. Did the fact that you are a dominant caste person making such a narrative play on your mind at all while you were conceiving this film?
Not really. You see, I don't feel it's if you believe in the story that I'm telling, that why should art be available to everybody?
Right.
The same applies to what content am I eligible to make about. I'm eligible to make things which move me, and I'm moved by the fact that somebody like Mr. Yeshudas coming from Cochin, studying in the art, this thing, then learning under Semagudi Srinivasa, comes and sings in Mylapore and has so many people loving his voice is an ennobling quality. So that in one level is there inside you. You are already sensitized, and pretty much the same thing applies when I'm trying to make a story. And it's like, why can't Ben Kingsley? He was not an Indian to play Gandhi, right? It wasn't some white man who came. And Richard Attenborough made such a fantastic film on Gandhi. I don't think any Indian has made a film like that. Right. So if we said that only an Indian can make a film on Gandhi, we would not have had a great film like Gandhi. Or if the British had been foolish enough to say that only a British person must make a film on Elizabeth, then in that case, Shekhar Kapoor could not have made a great film. So also, if I believe and can understand the agony of Peter and his journey, then I cannot say that I have the story in my hand, but I am not qualified. Maybe somebody else is qualified to make it, so I must not make it. I am having the story, I want to tell it. If it reaches a few more people and if it will inspire a few more people to take on the arts, and if the art will become inclusive and if more people will come, art develops, people become conscious, and there is greater sense of joy that music brings. That is go ahead and try, and let's see what happens.
Okay. Why did you take such a long time after Kandu Kondain? Were there other projects that did not take off?
Yeah, I wrote lots of scripts. I have enough now scripts to recycle and reboot. Now, I did because I worked with the real stars. Like 4 stars. Getting together Kandu Kondain and finishing it was really a difficult thing. And so I kind of wrote a small docudrama about a relationship between Anil Kumble and a handicapped boy and who was suffering from Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So I was trying various kind of forms. I didn't want to get stuck back to doing a multi-star cast, kind of typical film. So I keep trying various things, and some work. And for some reason, even when the scripts were finished, films just getting pushed, postponed. I have gone ahead and met Amir Khan and shown him a script that I wrote about wrestlers here when he was shooting in thing, but nothing happens, and don't get a call, and then something else happens. And of course, my script was about two young boys whose father had failed as a wrestler, who wanted to make them into wrestlers, but that became two women. I mean, these things keep happening in your life, and you think, God, what am I doing wrong? I mean, it's to the outside world. They think Rajiv Menon has a plush office, he makes a lot of ads, he's flying around, and he has no problem, he has no time for cinema. It is not. I've been writing and writing and writing and agonizing over scripts and rewriting, and I'm a furious writer and a furious critic of myself. I write a draft, get people to read it, take feedback, rewrite. But for some reason, the pause button just couldn't lift. In some cases, it was like a problem with casting. Some places it was a problem with producers, something. So eventually I said, screw all this. So we have got this story and it's coming. And again, we had the same issue of producers coming in and saying, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that, maybe you should cast this person, that person, and all that. So finally my wife Lata said, Rajiv, we produce ads every day. You and I will just produce it. You just make this film. We have the wherewithal, we have cameras, we have edit suites, we have everything, just go ahead and do it. And they said, okay. This middle class mentality of fear of, if you produce, what will happen? So I said, but you have to express this, and the only way the story had to be told is we had to step in as producers, and that's what ended up in a position today you and I can talk, that the film is finished and ready for release.
Right.
I think you just need a leap of faith, and that's what we did by getting in as producers.
You just kind of led into my next question, because I was going to ask you that you don't have to make movies, in the sense that your bread and butter comes from the ad world. So, which is why, I mean, I've asked you this before, why don't you shoot more films? And you've just, even the films that you've shot are not that many, considering how long you've been around. Now, when you come back into this movie world, shooting world, from the ad world, do you find that maybe you've become rusty in the movie sense? Do you have to oil up your movie muscles as compared to your ad muscles?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an issue. It's not like swimming, because whatever you did some time back is not what you want to do. You have changed, you have seen a lot more films, you have been influenced by a lot more things, and it would definitely mean that there's muscle memory, and it's like playing a shot or something like that. But even if you were making films regularly, it's imperative that you have to change. It's imperative that you need to keep searching for a new kind of cinematic drama all the time, because whatever you did can get dated, and you try to make your film with that much care that the aging process and the kind of dating of your image is reduced, and it's not filled with the cliches of the present. So in some ways, you have to know what's happening in the cinematic world, and you must have strong enough views to reject some of the typical things that are happening in the present. Say, these are cheesy things, I'm not going to touch it, and say that, okay, I'm going to look for this kind of a way of, I mean, how do you open a scene? How do you close a scene? And what you said is absolutely true, because, even now, when I were to go the first day in an ad, for the first 2-3 hours, I'm like struggling, struggling to just convince myself that this is the best shot I could have taken. I'm always having that doubt. When a feature film, it's completely a different sense of anxiety that you're dealing with, because when you have written a scene, and if you have written a scene, and if the scene has been cooking in your head for a year, you see it in a certain timing, and then timing of a scene is very important, and the pitch of the scene. Right. So you have to sort of know the entire graph, and what pitch are you starting the scene, or what pace are you starting it. And most people let it happen. They very rarely say, okay, just slow this down, let's not rush the scene, or does it look like everybody knows all the answers and all the replies are coming so pat, and are you letting the characters just receive the question, and does it look like the answers are just forming in the thing? And that is a timing kind of issue, and you don't know whether your writing is falling apart, or whether the acting is falling apart, or whether your choreography is not there, and then you, in between all these doubts, you have to quickly say, no, 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 these are not the things, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine, now let's go ahead, this is it. And then have a sense that, yes, this is right. Because you got to move the train, you've got to move that, and that pace at which you're starting your scene. So I think, like I would say, in any crucial moment that your information is being delivered via audio or video, what happens a few frames before and what happens after, how much do you leave of the after and how much do you keep of the thing, is, I think, what makes cinema tick. And that's where pace comes in.
Right.
And that's where a good editor comes in. And that's where the people feel, that they are with the character. They feel they've grown with the character. And I think those elements are something that I have imbibed more and more. And I've tried to move my films from plot-driven to more character-driven things. Because I do believe that if now cinema is more character driven, and
right.
You need to really feel the person's interiority, and he's thinking over it, and it looks like the lines are just slipping out of his mind, not his lips.
You said something very interesting. You said that you have to clear the film of the cliches of the present.
Yeah.
But then these very cliches that you're clearing of the present, and you're trying to present this brand new thing, 3-4 years hence they may become cliches. So my question to you is, when you watch Minsara Kanavu or Kandukonde today, are there any of those moments that
I don't watch it. I don't watch it at all. I find it very awkward seeing my own film, or even seeing that. I've hardly ever seen my first film that I have shot, Chaitanya. But you can't escape Kandukonde because of the fact that Sun TV and KTV puts it like 4 or 5 times a year. So I think it's their most successful I think content that they have on television. So they keep putting it, and you can keep hearing the song, you can keep hearing dialogues. And my children have grown seeing that. So they on dining table will suddenly pop up some dialogues of Meenakshi's or of Captain Bala, or நீங்க காதலையும் இதையும் போட்டு குழப்புறீங்க. So I read it. Oh shit, these are lines that I wrote. I mean, I've completely forgotten it. So then I remember years back, and I had done an interview for Girish Karnad. He was making a film on 50 years of independence, and one of the interviews was with Semmangudi Srinivasa Iyer. And so Semmangudi Srinivasa Iyer was saying, I'm 82, 83, no use living, waste. He was saying like, so what do you say? So he said, see, பாட முடியல இதுக்கு வாழ்றேன், அங்கேயும் கூப்பிட மாட்டேங்கிறாரு, I want to go. So, I mean, his wife had passed away. He was sitting and, putting the charka and all that. So I said that, who do you listen to? எல்லாம் பயங்கரமா பாடுறாங்க, நல்லா பாடுறாங்க எல்லாரும், ரொம்ப பெருசா பாடுறாங்க. அமீர் கல்யாணி.
You were shooting this?
Yeah, 40 minutes பாடுறாங்க. He's telling all this. And then he says, but, so I said, you don't like these present singers? No, they are all Buddhisalis. So what is the problem? He says, I don't know. They are singing, but it's not there, So what can you do? Why can't you listen to your own music? He said, me listening to my own music? Ayyo, adu vaandi saapra madri irukku, he said. He said, it's like, he was so brutal. He said, music, flowers, adu sangeetham, adu pushpam, appappa malarudhu. அது தூக்கி ஃப்ரிட்ஜுக்குள்ளே வச்சா பார்க்குறதுக்கு அழகாக இருக்கும், ஆனால் வாசனை இருக்காது. I didn't fully get it at that time, but I kind of completely understand that it's really kind of difficult, to actually see your own films and, feel good or bad about it. It's like something's over. It's like long lost girlfriends. It's over, finished.
It's not like a 96 kind of situation.
No. I don't live in nostalgia. I'm always looking at what is new to do,
Okay.
And like I think it was Bergman or somebody who said that the film that I'm going to make is the most important one that you're
Right. But how does one avoid this, in the sense that, let's say, you're being given retrospectives, people still talk fondly about your film, but the audience sees it very differently. But you, as a creator, are doomed in a way to kind of keep looking more at the mistakes you've made probably than the things that you got right? Is that how it works?
Both work. There are things that you learn from both. I mean, I kind of always feel, and when I look at Minsara Kanava and say that, it was like a cult following for the film in Tamil Nadu and in North India. Then why would somebody want Kajol to marry Prabhudeva and not Arvind Swamy? Arvind Swamy's come out of things. They don't understand that. They don't see Arvind Swamy's come out of Roja, so he's so good looking and you should get him. But actually, there's something a little more than that. When you write a script, you really need to convince people that they're going to be happier together. I mean, and that's very important if somebody makes a certain choice like that. And for that, you need to have some character flaws inside it. So the idea of the tragic flaw, I mean, tragedy is not just about series of sad events, but it's about the main character having a flaw, and that's why he ends up becoming a tragic hero. If you don't have that tragic flaw in your writing, then people say, I don't get it. Nobody says, I don't get it why Hamlet is suffering like that. Nobody says, I don't get it why a well-written tragedy happens. But otherwise, they would say that. So it's a lot to do with the writing that you kind of understand. And in Kandukundain, I also felt that even if a love story in a film is going to break and you learn to love again, there also the audience must be with that person as she's falling in love and be completely committed to that thing happening. And you need to, when you shoot it, you got to shoot it with the same passion, and then the abruptness with which it breaks must break your heart as much as it breaks the character's heart, the audience also. I couldn't achieve that with Abbas's character falling in love with, because I don't think, in my back of my mind, I knew that Captain Bala is coming. So, but I should not know Captain Bala is coming. I should be completely invested in it. Though I may have been in Glasgow, though I may have been there, and though I may have put Bharat as thing, but somewhere lurking in me was the feeling that she's doing a mistake. But I should not, because in that instant of the story, I should be completely with Meenakshi, trying to convince the audience that Meenakshi desperately will be happy.
It's like what your mother said, being in the present.
Yeah. I think art is about, temporal arts especially, I mean, music is a temporal art, so is film. So a lot of the ideas that are there in music are there in film too. And that's why film music is so interesting. Film music is so interesting because it is the most abstract thing in the film space. Because why does a certain instrument work? Why do you cry? And how you can use it to bridge certain things. Like I'll give you an example. And I always call this that you can give information, but you can give emotion when the right music comes in. So in Pater Panchali, you have, Durga is ill and she's having fever, and then there's this intercut between the flickering lamp, the door, and the mother and things. Tuck, 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 it goes, and there's thunder and lightning happening, and then those 3 or 4 cuts keep going round and round, and boop, the door opens, the lamp goes off, and Durga's gone. But it doesn't say Durga. Durga doesn't die like that. I mean, it's just cut there.
Symbolic.
And then you see a tracking shot of some women coming in. There's a hut. The house is being really mauled by the storm. And they come and look, the door is ajar, and you see the mother sitting with the dead child on her lap. No wailing, no shouting, nothing. People are just shocked. And then after some time, you discover that a father is coming in. And he says, Apu, Durga, he's saying, and he's coming in. And then he comes in, and this lady comes, sits next to him. And then he takes out the sari, and he says, there's a lot of work for the Brahmins. We're now making money. We're going to go, and everybody will be happy. And this is for you, and this is for Durga. And when she says for Durga, the Tar Shehnai bit comes in, and you cry. Now, what I'm trying to tell you is, Ray is a master. He gives you the information of death, but makes you feel the emotion of death with music. And that's what makes Indian cinema...
And not simultaneously.
Not simultaneously, not together, not concurrently. So, what you can do with music is That's why there's no meter for it. It's like diffusion in light. It's not, you can measure the intensity of light, but you cannot there's no meter for diffusion. So also, we don't, I mean, if you say that shall use, when people smile, I shall use sitar, when people cry, I shall use shehnai, and that's how re-recordings work. But the advent of Western instruments, the advent of using themes, all these have started recently in Indian cinema, you know, and that ability of music as a kind of a abstract temporal form which in turn influences emotion, they are very, very interesting, you know.
Are we likely to find some of this in Sarvam Thaala Mayam?
We've worked really hard on the background score of the film, and some of it is symphonic, some of it is using new instruments, and because it's a film about percussion, you know, we just feel that we've used a lot of things which are not being conventionally used right now, like a tabla tarang. We've got instruments like the kora we have used, and AR and I have debated and discussed this just to get a different sound texture onto the film in the background score. One thing which is not changed in AR is his musical modesty. To me, cinematography is not about just shots or just lighting, it's composition. Great thing about Tamil film lovers, they clap for a shot. Hi, this is Rajiv Menon and you're watching me on Film Companion South. Do subscribe and watch Film Companion South.